The first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers.
Ugh, the classic. I mean, it's arguably the most famous line in the entire legal world, and it's not even from a law book.
It's basically the anthem for anyone who's ever been frustrated by red tape, right? You hear it at dinner parties when someone brings up, a crazy contract or a huge bill from their attorney.
Oh, absolutely. It's always said with a wink.
Yeah, exactly. Like, well, wouldn't life be so much simpler without all this legal stuff?
It's a real crowd pleaser. But, here's the thing about that quote, and this is really where we have to kick off our deep dive today. It isn't a joke.
Wait, what do you mean? It's always played for laughs. I've seen it on coffee mugs.
In pop culture, sure. It's a punchline.
Yeah.
But if you actually go back to the source, Shakespeare's Henry VI, Part 2, it was never meant to be funny. It's a warning.
A warning.
A serious one. And according to the research we're looking at today, it's a warning that we have pretty much completely ignored at our own peril.
Okay, you've got my attention. It's not every day we start with Shakespeare and end up... Where are we ending up?
We're ending up with the collapse of the rule of law. We're unpacking this fascinating and honestly a little bit terrifying paper. It's called AI May Succeed, Where Dick the Butcher Failed.
Dick the Butcher. That sounds charming.
He's the character in the play who actually says the line. And the paper's author, Daryl Carlton, makes the case that we're seeing Dick the Butcher's plan play out right now.
Right now.
But not with swords and pitchforks. It's happening through two very modern forces: artificial intelligence and a specific class of tech oligarchs.
Wow. So that's a heavy premise. You're saying getting rid of lawyers, or at least the function of law, is the first step toward tyranny.
That's the argument. And Carlton says we are much, much further down that road than we realize.
Okay, let's back up. We need to start with Shakespeare. So this Dick the Butcher character, who is he, really?
So in the play, he is a villain, a genuine thug. He's a murderer. And he's the right-hand man to a rebel leader named Jack Cade. And their whole movement is aggressively anti-intellectual.
Right. The source mentioned they burn books.
They burn books. They kill anyone who can read. It's a total purge of knowledge. So when Dick says, let's kill all the lawyers, he's not trying to, streamline a business deal.
He's making a tactical point.
Exactly. He knows that lawyers are the ones who enforce the rules. So if you want to seize total arbitrary power, you have to get rid of the people whose job it is to say, hey, wait a minute, you can't do that.
That completely changes the flavor of the quote. It's not lawyers are annoying, it's lawyers are the shield.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the paper brings up a really interesting point from a U.S. Supreme Court Justice, John Paul Stevens.
From when?
Back in 1985. He argued that Shakespeare totally understood this, that destroying the legal profession is a necessary step towards totalitarianism. He called lawyers the institutional embodiment of legal constraints.
Which is a fancy way of saying they're the brakes on the car.
Perfect analogy. And if you want to drive that car off a cliff, you have to cut the brakes first.
Okay, but to play devil's advocate for a second, the source mentions a scholar, Daniel Kornstein, who has a slightly different take. He says maybe people in the play hated lawyers because they were just hired guns for the rich. Which, let's be honest, is a feeling a lot of people can relate to today.
And that's a fair point. It's a valid class-based reading, but Carlton argues that even if that's true, it doesn't change the outcome.
How so?
Because whether lawyers are protecting the rich or the Constitution, they represent structure. They represent a system with due process, with rules. If you get rid of them, you don't get freedom. You get raw power.
Okay, so Shakespeare sets the warning 400 years ago. Now let's jump to late 2025. The source brings up an article from the Spectator magazine.
Right, with a headline, AI will kill all the lawyers.
A very deliberate callback. And this piece was, terrifying for anyone with a law degree. It talks about a senior barrister using an AI system.
And the results were shocking.
He said the AI did something in 30 seconds that took him a day and a half. And it wasn't just fast. He said the quality was at the level of a truly great King's Counsel.
That's the economic reality, isn't it? The efficiency is just undeniable.
For sure. And the barrister in that piece literally tells his niece not to study law because the job won't exist. But is that the real threat here? Just, unemployment for lawyers.
Well, that's where Daryl Carlton, the author of our source paper, steps in and says, stop. He says focusing on the jobs is a massive distraction.
A distraction from what?
From the real danger. He calls this focus the displacement thesis. Sure, AI might mean we need fewer junior associates to review contracts. That's just economic disruption. It happens.
So he's basically saying, too bad about your lost income.
In a sense, yeah. He's saying if AI writes better, cheaper contracts, great. That's not the threat. The threat isn't that a machine does the work.
It's that the constraint on power disappeared.
Exactly. That's the distinction, displacement versus destruction.
Yeah. Okay, can you unpack that for me? Because if all the lawyers are gone, aren't the constraints gone too?
Not necessarily. Think of it like this. If a robot drives your car, you still have to follow the speed limit, right?
Right.
The law still exists.
Okay.
But what if the robot is programmed to ignore the speed limit because it's more efficient? And what if there's no police officer to pull it over?
Then the law is just a suggestion. It's effectively gone.
Exactly. And that leads us perfectly to the first big case study in the paper, the robo-debt scandal in Australia.
I've heard the name, but break it down. What was robo-debt?
It is the perfect, chilling example of what Carlton calls efficiency replacing legality. The Australian government wanted to recoup welfare overpayments. Normal stuff.
Right.
But instead of having humans review files, they automated it. They used an algorithm to match tax data against welfare data, and if the numbers didn't line up, bang, the computer automatically issued a debt notice.
Automatically, with no human checking it.
Pretty much. The system issued over 500,000 debt notices. 526,000 to be exact. Suddenly, all these people were told they owed the government thousands of dollars.
And the data was just wrong.
It was fundamentally illegal. The Royal Commission that investigated found the method was flawed and illegal. It was using something called income averaging, which was just mathematically and legally incorrect. But here's the Dick the Butcher moment. The system ran for years.
For years? How is that even possible if it was illegal?
Because the system shifted the burden of proof. It was up to the welfare recipient, often someone very vulnerable, to prove the algorithm was wrong. You had to find pay stubs from 5 years ago to argue with the machine.
So they automated the accusation, but not the defense. They just priced justice out of reach.
You've nailed it. And the human cost, I mean, the source is pretty graphic. It wasn't just an inconvenience.
Yeah, I was reading that section. It's devastating. We're talking severe financial hardship, stress, and suicides. The source explicitly links suicides to these false debt notices.
It's just tragic. And the lesson Carlton draws is that technological efficiency is not the same as legal compliance. The government prioritized the efficiency of getting money back over the legality of how they did it.
So they effectively killed the lawyers in the process. They marginalized them to make the machine run smoother.
Precisely. And that is the warning shot. When you automate governance without legal oversight, you get tyranny by algorithm. It's clean, efficient, and completely unjust.
Which is terrifying. But the paper argues that the AI, the algorithms, that's actually the lesser of the two threats.
Right. It gets worse. Because an algorithm, you can at least, in theory, fix it or turn it off.
But the contemporary Dick the Butcher, according to Carlton, isn't software. It's a specific group of people.
The tech oligarchs. This is the absolute core of his argument. He calls what we're seeing a corporate coup. And this isn't incompetence. This is described as a deliberate, systematic dismantling of checks and balances.
The source gets very specific here, focusing on the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, set up in January 2025. And we should be clear, we're reporting what the source argues here.
Yes, absolutely. We're looking impartially at the claims in the paper. And the paper focuses heavily on the leadership of this department, specifically Elon Musk.
Right. And the big issue seems to be the massive conflict of interest. It feels like the fox guarding the hen house.
It's huge. You have an unelected billionaire running a government department that can restructure federal agencies. At the same time, his own companies, SpaceX, Tesla, X, have huge government contracts and are subject to federal regulation.
The source quotes an ethics professor calling it the keys to the candy store.
And that's the claim, that by running DOGE, he gained access to sensitive data, trade secrets, enforcement actions against his own competitors. It's not just about efficiency, it's about power.
But again, to play the other side, everyone complains about government waste. Isn't efficiency a good thing?
Efficiency is generally good. No one wants waste. But the source argues that efficiency is being used as a cover to dismantle necessary protections. The paper describes these DOGE operatives, often young coders.
The move fast and break things crowd.
Exactly. And they were recommending the dismantling of entire departments, not because they were wasteful, but because they were obstacles. But obstacles to what? To the unchecked power of these companies.
There's a statistic in here about the consequences of this efficiency that's just staggering. It's about foreign aid.
Yes, that was grim. The source cites of Professor Brooke Nichols. Her estimate was that by May 2025, cuts to foreign aid programs pushed by DOGE had led to approximately 300,000 deaths.
300,000, that's the population of a city.
And the projection was over 700,000 by January 2026. The argument is that when you apply this ruthless efficiency logic to complex humanitarian systems, people die. The so-called inefficiency, the oversight, the checks and balances, that was the thing keeping people alive.
And the paper frames this as legislative capture, too. It's not just cutting budgets, it's rewriting the rules themselves.
Correct. The source points to a law passed in Delaware in 2025. It claims that Meta's legal team directly consulted on a bill that would shield tech billionaires from litigation and evidence gathering.
Wait, so the people being regulated helped write the regulations?
That is the literal definition of legislative capture. It's what the source calls the tech oligarchic assault on legal constraint. If you write the law to exempt yourself, you've effectively killed the lawyers because the law can't touch you.
Which brings up this idea of escaping the jurisdiction. It's
Yep.
like these companies are trying to become their own countries.
That's a comparison the source makes explicitly. It compares them to the British East India Company.
The East India Company from the 18th century.
It's an old parallel, but a striking one. The East India Company started as a corporation, but it ended up with its own army, its own currency, ruling territory. It became a government. Carlton argues that's what we're seeing now.
And they don't like it when other countries try to regulate them. There was a section on a clash with Europe that was really disturbing.
Yeah, this really highlights the sovereignty angle. In February 2025, a presidential memorandum claimed U.S. tech companies should be exempt from foreign laws. It called foreign regulations regulatory imperialism.
That's some serious spin. How dare you regulate our company in your country?
And it had real consequences. The source reports that the Trump administration barred European officials from entering the U.S., specifically people like Thierry Breton, who is trying to enforce the Digital Services Act.
So if a European official tries to enforce their own laws on an American tech platform, they get banned from the U.S.
That's what the source reports.
Yeah.
It's a total rejection of the rule of law. It's an assertion of absolute immunity. It's basically saying, we are the law.
It really is Dick the Butcher's dream. You don't have to physically kill the lawyers if you can just ban the regulators and rewrite the laws to say you're untouchable.
That's it. And this brings the whole argument together. The source is saying we're all getting distracted by the shiny new toy, the AI. We're all worried about our jobs.
Right. Will ChatGPT take my job? That's the headline everyone clicks.
But Carlton says, who cares? That's a labor market problem. The real problem is the political assault on legal constraint. It doesn't matter if it's a human or a machine doing the legal work. What matters is there a law that can stop the powerful?
And the source suggests the answer is increasingly no.
Because the people in power view the law itself as an inefficiency. They see due process as friction to be eliminated.
I want to touch on one last phrase from the source. Activist judges. We hear that thrown around all the time.
We do. And the source offers a very cynical but maybe accurate definition for this context. It says activist judge is just a euphemism for a judge who enforces laws that powerful people find inconvenient.
Oof, that cuts right through the noise, doesn't it?
It does. If a judge says, no, you can't cut that funding, or no, you can't do that because it violates this statute, they get labeled an activist. The goal is to remove those judges, to remove that constraint.
So if we pull it all together, we have AI that can remove the human element of legal oversight, like in Robodebt, and at the same time, we have powerful people actively capturing the system to make sure they're untouchable.
And that combination is deadly to the rule of law. It creates a system where only power and efficiency matter. Justice, fairness, due process, those are just bugs to be deleted from the code.
So as we wrap this up, I want to leave our listeners with a thought. We spend so much time worrying about the sci-fi scenario, right? The Terminator, Skynet, the AI that goes rogue.
What Hollywood loves.
Exactly. But based on this source material, maybe that's the wrong fear. Maybe we shouldn't be so worried about robots that want to act like humans. Maybe we should be more worried about humans who want to rule like robots.
With maximum efficiency, zero accountability, zero empathy.
That seems to be the real danger here, the algorithmization of our government, run by people who view the law as a bug, not a feature.
And it's a bug they are trying very, very hard to patch out of the system.
Well, thank you for walking us through this. It's complex, but it's an incredibly important pattern to see.
My pleasure. It's certainly changed how I'll hear that Shakespeare quote from now on.
Same here.
Yeah.
And to you listening, the next time you hear someone crack that joke about killing all the lawyers, maybe don't laugh. Maybe ask them what happens next. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.